Hello Christchurch. As we come to the easing of lockdown, I've been looking back at what some people were saying on social media back at the start. Many were saying that they'd taken up a musical instrument or started learning a new language. I read one blog post by a probably overachieving entrepreneur who suggested that if you end lockdown without having started a new business and learnt a language and completed a building project, you're a failure. I think we can probably say he's wrong. For some, just staying sane over the last few months has been achievement enough. But even without the added pressure of lockdown, we're constantly surrounded by messages of how well other people are doing. You know, the sort of thing. Here's my dinner, doesn't it look perfect? Or I'm so proud of my child's perfect homework. We don't see that. Or I'm just enjoying a coffee with my friends. For some reason, that one always has a picture of the coffee and not the friends. Sometimes we'll compare our own achievements with others and it will spur us on. Duncan will send me a video of what he's been doing through work and I'll think, I can't do that with a saxophone. I'm going to go and learn how to do it. That's obviously the Duncan who's a woodwind teacher, not the Duncan who's a nurse.
I think during lockdown, the lack of real social interaction has meant that we've relied more on social media, email, Zoom to keep up with people. The edited highlights of everyone's lives that we often see serve to make us feel like we're failing more than ever before. And women are really good at comparing themselves to others. It starts when we're young, wishing we could be as attractive as our friends, and it doesn't go away as we get older. And I'm privileged to have some incredible friends, but sometimes I look at them and I compare myself and think, I wish I could be as organised as them, or as clever as them, or as kind, or as good a parent, or as pretty as they are. And before you know it, you're wallowing in a misery hole. You feel low, you lose motivation, and you feel as if nothing you do will ever be any good. And on the other side, there are many, many TV programmes that claim to show the worst of human nature, almost encouraging us to watch and think, well, I'm not great, but at least I'm better than they are. And that kind of comparison makes us feel artificially superior and stops us dealing with the real wrongs in our own lives. And as human beings, our worries and our problems, they're not really original. There's usually a precedent. And the Bible shows us loads of examples. For example, the disciples compared themselves to see who was the best. Jacob and his brothers were constantly aware of who the best brother was. And God's people, the Israelites, got distracted from focusing on living God's way, looking at the people around them instead. God would do something amazingly miraculous, but a short time later, people would abandon God's commands, abandon their relationship with God, and start living like the people near them. You can imagine it so clearly. A neighbouring town worships a particular god. They seem to be a bit more affluent. Maybe they're doing it the right way after all. The neighbouring town are having a wild party at some celebration. This looks like more fun. Maybe they'll be happier if they lived like they did. Theodore Roosevelt said that comparison is a thief of joy, but it wasn't only joy the Israelites lost, it was their peace, their security, their very purpose and identity. And when I compare myself to others, what I'm really doing is putting the focus of life onto myself. I'm saying that if I was pretty, clever or competent, then I'd be happy and fulfilled. But if I take my eyes off myself and put them back on Jesus and living for him, then I realise two things. Firstly, I'm never going to be perfect and I'm always going to fail. But Jesus is the real source of joy, peace and security. Living for him is my purpose. Doesn't matter what everyone else is doing, neither they nor I are where my eyes need to be.
All too often, our reaction is to feel inadequate. We don't just compare, we judge ourselves using other people as the benchmark, and then we find ourselves failing. We should remember that none of us are yet a finished product. We can be confident that he who began a good work in us will carry it on to completion, but that won't be until the day of Jesus Christ, as Paul wrote to the Philippians. Besides, we should choose a better scale to evaluate ourselves against. Micah tells us what God requires of us in chapter 6. He's shown you, O mortal, what's good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And that's what we should be aiming for. Secondly, we should choose a better judge. The judge that really matters isn't you or me or your friends or the internet. It's God. He doesn't look at whether your bread is as appetizing as Martin's, but at our hearts, and we'd be wise to do the same. We heard a few weeks ago how Samuel went to anoint King David, and he rejected the bigger, stronger brothers in favour of their little brother. He said, the Lord doesn't look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Besides, we're not called to fit in and be like everyone else. Indeed, quite the opposite. Paul wrote to the Romans, "Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but rather be transformed by the renewing of your mind." So as lockdown eases and society gets back little by little to normal, whatever that may mean in the short term, don't look back and compare yourself to other people, how they've coped or what they've achieved, but instead be confident of your identity as a child of the living God and fix your eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. And if you do cook a nice cake, don't send me a picture, send me a slice.